Hello guys. Welcome back to another amazing fanfic story. First of all, a huge thank you for all the love and support on part 1. So many of you were asking for the next part in the comments, and because of your requests, I'm finally back with part 2. What if Naruto became Konoha's most desired man? Part 2. The following week brought an unexpected problem. Not a village crisis. Not an enemy attack. Not even paperwork. Which immediately made Naruto suspicious. Because peaceful weeks around him rarely stayed peaceful. The problem arrived in the form of a letter. A very important letter. One that required the Hokage to attend a diplomatic retreat with representatives from several villages. 3 days. Outside Konoha. Far away from his office. Naruto stared at the invitation. Then smiled. No paperwork. 10 minutes later, he learned something unfortunate. Hinata was attending. Temari was attending. Sakura was attending as Konoha's medical representative. And somehow, Anko had volunteered herself. Naruto looked toward the ceiling. I knew there was a catch. 2 days later the group departed. The retreat was held near a beautiful mountain lake surrounded by forests and rolling hills. For once, Naruto actually felt relaxed. The scenery was peaceful. The air was fresh. And there were no giant stacks of documents trying to destroy him. The first day passed smoothly. Meetings, discussions, negotiations, normal diplomatic things. The real trouble began that evening. Because the retreat organizers announced a team competition. Naruto immediately regretted existing. The event was simple. Teams would complete challenges around the lakeside. The winning team would receive a special prize. Naruto didn't care about the prize. The women absolutely did, mostly because Naruto happened to be participating. The first challenge involved archery. Temari dominated. The second involved obstacle courses. Anko somehow ignored half the rules and still won. The third involved medical knowledge. Sakura crushed everyone. Naruto spent most of the competition wondering how his life had become so complicated. Then came the final challenge. A boat race across the lake. Unfortunately, the organizers randomly assigned partners. Naruto pulled a name from the box. Hinata. A small blush appeared on her face. Across the field, Anko groaned dramatically. Temari folded her arms. Sakura suddenly became very interested in the sky. The race began moments later. The boat cut through the sparkling water. For a while neither Naruto nor Hinata spoke. The lake reflected the sunset like liquid gold. It was beautiful, peaceful, comfortable. Naruto found himself smiling. This reminds me of the old days. Hinata looked toward him. The old days. Back when everything was simpler. A gentle smile appeared on her face. You mean before becoming Hokage? Exactly. For a few moments they paddled in silence. Then Hinata spoke softly. You've changed. Naruto blinked. In a good way. Very. Their eyes met. For a brief moment the world seemed to slow. The sounds of the competition faded. The lake disappeared. Everything except each other vanished. Hinata's heart pounded. Naruto felt something strange. Something warm. Something he couldn't quite explain. Then a loud splash shattered the moment. Both turned. Anko had somehow fallen out of her boat. Or possibly jumped out. Nobody was completely sure. Help. She shouted dramatically. I'm dying. You can stand up. Sakura yelled. The water was barely waist deep. Anko looked down. Details. That night the retreat hosted a banquet beside the lake. Lanterns floated across the water. Music drifted through the air. The atmosphere felt almost magical. Naruto stood near the shoreline enjoying the view. Until Temari joined him. You've been quiet. Naruto shrugged. Just thinking. Dangerous habit. He laughed. Maybe. Temari leaned against the railing. For a while neither spoke. The silence felt surprisingly comfortable. Then Temari looked toward him. Do you ever think about your future? Naruto blinked. Future. You know. She gestured vaguely. Life. Family. Relationships. Naruto nearly choked. Temari immediately smirked. Interesting reaction. I hate these conversations. No. Her smile widened. You hate the answers. Before Naruto could reply, Fireworks suddenly erupted above the lake. Color flooded the night sky. Everyone turned to watch. For a moment Naruto forgot the question. Temari didn't. And judging by the look in her eyes, neither had she. Elsewhere, Sakura stood beside Hinata watching the display. Neither spoke at first. Then Sakura smiled softly. You love him. Hinata froze. Completely. The fireworks reflected in her pale eyes. A blush slowly appeared. Sakura's smile became gentler. Thought so. Hinata looked down. Unable to deny it. Unable to hide it. And perhaps, no longer wanting to. Far across the shoreline, Anko sat alone with a box of dango. For once she wasn't joking. For once she wasn't teasing. She simply watched Naruto laughing in the distance. A strange expression crossed her face. Because somewhere along the way, her feelings had become real too. Far more real than she wanted to admit. The peaceful retreat continued. But beneath the smiles, beneath the laughter, beneath the comfortable friendships, the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. Four hearts were moving toward the same destination. And very soon, Naruto Uzumaki would finally begin noticing. The final day of the retreat arrived far too quickly. For most people, it was simply the end of a successful diplomatic event. For Naruto, it was the beginning of a very confusing problem. Because over the last few days, he had started noticing things. Small things. Tiny things. The kind of things he normally ignored. Like how Hinata always remembered whether he had eaten. How Sakura could tell he was exhausted before he said a single word. How Temari challenged him every chance she got but somehow always stood beside him when things became difficult. And how Anko constantly found excuses to be around him. At first, he told himself it meant nothing. Then he remembered Kakashi's favorite lesson. Look underneath the underneath. That thought immediately made Naruto nervous. Very nervous. The trip back to Kanoha should have been peaceful. Instead, halfway through the journey, the group encountered unexpected trouble. A violent storm. Dark clouds rolled across the sky. Rain poured down. Thunder echoed through the mountains. The road ahead became dangerous. The group took shelter inside an abandoned outpost until the weather passed. The building wasn't large, which became a problem. Because everyone ended up sharing the same space. A very small space. A very awkward space. Naruto sat near a window watching the rain. The storm outside raged harder. Lightning illuminated the room. For a while everyone remained quiet. Then Anko broke the silence. Naturally. If the building collapses, who do you save first? Naruto blinked. What kind of question is that? A very important one. It absolutely isn't. It absolutely is. Temari immediately became interested. Sakura looked suspicious. Hinata suddenly found the floor fascinating. Naruto sensed danger. Immense danger. The kind of danger Sage Mode couldn't detect. Anko pointed dramatically. Answer the question. No. Answer. No. Answer. No. Anko grinned. He's panicking. I'm not panicking. You're sweating. It's hot. It is literally raining. Naruto considered jumping into the storm. An hour later the weather finally began calming. The group prepared to continue their journey. Then disaster struck. A section of the mountain path collapsed. Without warning, the ground beneath Hinata cracked. Everything happened instantly. Stone shattered. The edge crumbled. Hinata lost her footing. Naruto. Before anyone could react, Naruto moved. A blur of orange. A flash of instinct. A leap without hesitation. He caught her hand moments before she disappeared into the ravine. The impact slammed him against the cliffside. Pain shot through his arm. He ignored it. Hinata looked up. Their hands locked together. Her heart stopped. Not from fear, but from the look in Naruto's eyes. There wasn't even a moment of hesitation. Not a second of doubt. The instant she had fallen, he had moved. Because protecting her had become instinct. The others quickly helped pull them to safety. Once everyone stood securely on solid ground, Sakura immediately began checking for injuries. Temari looked relieved. Far more relieved than she intended to show. Even Anko looked shaken. Naruto, meanwhile, sat on a rock catching his breath. Hinata slowly approached him. You could have fallen too. Naruto smiled. But I didn't. Naruto. His expression softened. I'll always catch you. The words left his mouth naturally. Without thinking. Without realizing what they meant. Hinata froze. A deep blush spread across her cheeks. Naruto blinked. Then finally realized what he had just said. His face immediately turned red. Temari looked away before her smile became obvious. Sakura nearly laughed. Anko looked ready to explode from amusement. The rest of the journey became significantly more awkward. For Naruto. The women enjoyed it immensely. By the time they returned to Konoha, evening had fallen. The village lights glowed warmly beneath the darkening sky. Home. Everyone separated to return to their duties. Everyone except Naruto. Because Tsunade had been waiting. A fact nobody warned him about. Naruto entered the Hokage office. Then froze. Tsunade sat behind his desk. Drinking tea. Which was already alarming. The smile on her face made it worse. Much worse. Naruto slowly backed toward the door. No. Tsunade smiled wider. Oh yes. I don't like that smile. You shouldn't. Naruto pointed suspiciously. What did you do? Tsunade placed several photographs on the desk. Photos from the retreat. Naruto immediately recognized them. One showed him carrying Hinata after the cliff incident. Another showed him talking privately with Temari beside the lake. Another captured Sakura laughing while leaning against his shoulder. And somehow, one showed Anko hanging from his back while he looked completely exhausted. Naruto stared. Then looked at Tsunade. Then at the photos. Then back at Tsunade. Why? Tsunade rested her chin on her hands. Because the entire village is talking. Naruto's soul briefly left his body. What? Oh yes. She looked far too entertained. The betting pool has become enormous. Naruto felt fear. Real fear. What betting pool? Tsunade's smile became absolutely terrifying. Which woman wins your heart first? The office fell silent. Several seconds passed. Then Naruto buried his face in his hands. Outside the window, Konoha remained peaceful. Inside the office, the most desired man in the village had just discovered that everyone knew about the situation except him. And for the first time, Naruto Uzumaki began wondering if there was actually something more hidden behind all those smiles. Something he could no longer ignore. Eagle part mine Naruto co-direct hints melange, our pale serious confession attempt Shuruhogi. Naruto did not sleep well. Not because of paperwork. Not because of village problems. Not because of threats. But because of Tsunade. Specifically, because of what she had said. The entire village is talking. Those words echoed through his head like a cursed jutsu. The next morning he walked through Konoha and immediately noticed something horrifying. People were smiling at him. A lot. Too much. Old shopkeepers. Mission staff. Random civilians. Even several shinobi. They all had the same expression. The expression of people who knew something. Something Naruto didn't. Which made him deeply uncomfortable. Very deeply uncomfortable. By lunchtime, he had convinced himself he was imagining things. Then he entered Ichiraku. Ayame greeted him with a smile. Good afternoon, Lord Hokage. Good afternoon. She placed a bowl in front of him. Then casually asked, so who are you choosing? Naruto nearly inhaled an entire noodle. What? Ayame blinked innocently. What? What do you mean what? She laughed. Naruto immediately paid for his ramen and fled. Retreated. Strategically escaped. Whatever. The point was he ran away. Fast. Unfortunately, destiny wasn't finished with him. That evening he found himself sitting atop the Hokage monument. His favorite place to think. The village stretched below him. Peaceful. Beautiful. Home. You always come here when you're confused. Naruto glanced sideways. Sakura. Of course. She sat beside him. For a while neither spoke. The sunset painted the sky gold and crimson. Finally Sakura broke the silence. Something bothering you? Naruto sighed. A lot of things. Such as. He hesitated. Then decided honesty might actually help. Tsunade said the village has a betting pool. Sakura immediately started coughing. which was not reassuring at all. Naruto slowly turned toward her. Quote. You knew. Sakura suddenly became fascinated by a cloud. You knew. I might have heard rumors. Sakura. Fine. Naruto groaned. She laughed. Then her smile gradually softened. Naruto. Yeah. Have you really never noticed? The question caught him off guard. Noticed what? Sakura stared at him, completely speechless. Several emotions crossed her face. Disbelief. Confusion. Pain. Amusement. Then she laughed. A genuine laugh. The kind that only Naruto could inspire. You're impossible. Naruto frowned. That doesn't answer my question. No. She stood. It really does. Before he could stop her, Sakura walked away, leaving him even more confused than before. The following day brought another surprise. Tamari requested a private meeting. Naruto arrived expecting diplomatic business. Instead, he found her standing alone on a training field. No reports. No paperwork. No officials. Just her. Tamari. She looked toward him. For once there was no teasing smile. No playful sarcasm. Just honesty. Which somehow felt more dangerous. You've been acting strange. Naruto blinked. Me. Yes, you. Tamari crossed her arms. You're thinking too much. People keep saying that. Because it's true. The wind gently moved through her blonde hair. For a moment neither spoke. Then Tamari stepped closer. Can I ask you something? Naruto nodded. What do you see when you look at me? The question hit harder than any punch. What? What do you see? Naruto searched for an answer. A real answer. Not a joke. Not an easy escape. He looked at her. Really looked at her. The strong kunoichi who never backed down. The woman who challenged him when everyone else agreed. The friend who understood leadership. The person who always treated him as an equal. And suddenly, the answer came naturally. I see someone important. Tamari froze. Naruto continued. Someone I trust. The silence that followed felt strangely fragile. Tamari looked away, a faint blush appearing despite her best efforts. For perhaps the first time in years, the confident Sand Kunoichi didn't know what to say. Then footsteps approached, and the moment vanished. Naturally. Because apparently the universe hated timing. Enko appeared carrying Dango. Did I interrupt something? Yes. Both answered simultaneously. Enko looked delighted. Later that night, another unexpected encounter occurred. Naruto was walking home when he noticed a familiar figure sitting alone near the river. Hinata. The moonlight reflected across the water. She looked peaceful, yet thoughtful. Naruto approached quietly. Mind if I sit here? Hinata smiled. Of course not. He sat beside her. The cool night breeze drifted across the riverbank. For several minutes neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable, natural. The kind of silence only existed between people who understood each other. Then Naruto looked toward her. Hinata. Her heart skipped. Yes. I wanted to thank you. For what? For always being there. Hinata froze. Naruto smiled softly. No matter what happened. When everyone ignored me. When I failed. When things got hard. You never stopped believing in me. His voice carried a sincerity that made her chest tighten. Hinata. He looked directly into her eyes. And honestly, the world seemed to stop. Her breath caught. The river. The wind. Everything faded away. Only Naruto remained. I don't know where I'd be without you. Hinata's heart pounded. Louder. Faster. Stronger. For a moment she thought she might actually say it. The truth. The feelings she had carried for years. The words waiting in her heart. She opened her mouth. Ready. Finally ready. Then a familiar voice echoed through the darkness. Naruto ooh. Both immediately closed their eyes. Enko. Again. Somehow. Some way. Every single time. Enko appeared waving enthusiastically. I found you. Naruto looked toward the heavens. Seeking answers. Receiving none. Meanwhile, hidden atop a nearby rooftop, Sakura watched the scene unfold. Tamari stood beside her. Neither woman spoke. Both had seen everything. The way Naruto looked at Hinata. The softness in his voice. The warmth in his eyes. And for the first time, both realized the same thing. The race for Naruto's heart had already begun. Whether Naruto understood it or not. And very soon, the days that followed felt different. Subtle, yet impossible to ignore. Something had changed. Not in Konoha. Not in the village. Not even among the women. The change was happening inside Naruto. For the first time in his life, he was paying attention. Really paying attention. And that turned out to be a terrible idea. Because once he started noticing things, he couldn't stop. Hinata's gentle smiles. Sakura's concern whenever he skipped meals. Temari's habit of seeking him out after important meetings. Enko finding increasingly ridiculous excuses to spend time around him. Every interaction now carried questions. Questions Naruto wasn't prepared to answer. One afternoon, he found himself staring blankly at a mission report. Shikamaru sat across from him. Watching. Waiting. Enjoying himself far too much. Naruto finally groaned. Why are women so complicated? Shikamaru nearly fell out of his chair. After several seconds of laughing, he managed to answer. Women aren't complicated. Naruto pointed dramatically. That's the biggest lie you've ever told. No. Shikamaru smirked. The problem is you're 10 years behind everyone else. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Everyone keeps saying things like that. Because it's true. Naruto hated when people agreed with each other. Especially when they were right. That evening, a light rain fell over Konoha. Most villagers hurried indoors. The streets became quieter. Peaceful. Naruto was finishing his rounds when he noticed someone standing beneath a covered walkway. Hinata. She was watching the rain. Lost in thought. Naruto smiled and walked over. Couldn't sleep. Hinata turned. A small smile appeared immediately. Neither could you. Fair point. They stood side by side, watching raindrops dance across the empty streets. For several minutes neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It never was. Then Naruto suddenly asked a question. One he hadn't planned to ask. Hinata. Yes. Were you serious? She blinked. About what? When you said you always believed in me. The rain continued falling. Softly. Steadily. Hinata lowered her eyes. I was. Naruto's chest tightened. There was no hesitation in her voice. No uncertainty. Just truth. Pure and simple. The same truth that had existed for years. Naruto looked away, suddenly unable to meet her eyes. Because deep down, he was beginning to understand. And that realization frightened him. Not because it was bad, but because it mattered. A lot. Very quietly, Hinata spoke again. Naruto. He looked toward her. And froze. The expression on her face was unlike anything he had seen before. Gentle. Vulnerable. Brave. 1,000 emotions hidden behind one look. For years she had remained silent. For years she had waited. But not tonight. Not anymore. Hinata took a deep breath. Her heart hammered inside her chest. Every instinct told her to retreat. To hide. To stay silent. But she was tired of silence. Tired of fear. Tired of wondering. So she stepped forward. Just one step. Yet it felt like crossing an ocean. Naruto. His pulse quickened. The rain seemed to disappear. The world narrowed. Only Hinata remained. And then she said it. I love you. The words hung in the air. Simple. Honest. Powerful. For a moment, Naruto forgot how to breathe. Everything stopped. The village. The rain. Time itself. Hinata's hands trembled slightly. But her eyes never left his. She wasn't running anymore. Wasn't hiding. Wasn't apologizing. She had finally spoken the truth. Naruto stared at her. Shock flooded his mind. Not because he disliked hearing it. Quite the opposite. The problem was that part of him had always known. And now there was nowhere left to hide from it. Hinata. His voice came out softer than intended. She smiled sadly. It's okay. No. Naruto stepped closer. Hinata. For the first time in years. Naruto Uzumaki was completely speechless. Because no battle, no enemy, no war had ever prepared him for this moment. Then something unexpected happened. Hinata laughed. A small laugh. Warm and beautiful. Naruto blinked. You confessed and now you're comforting me. A blush appeared on her cheeks. Maybe. Despite everything, Naruto laughed too. The tension eased slightly. Just enough. Then he looked at her again. Really looked at her. And finally understood. The countless moments. The support. The kindness. The faith she had shown him. All of it. Every single bit. And suddenly his heart felt very full. Very warm. Very confused. But full. I need time. The words hurt to say. Because he didn't want to hurt her. But he refused to lie. Hinata nodded. Immediately. Without anger. Without disappointment. Without pressure. Because that was who she was. I know. Naruto released a breath. Relief mixed with gratitude. Then Hinata smiled. The same smile that had always calmed him. No matter what answer you choose. She gently touched his hand. Quote. I'm glad you know the truth now. For several moments neither moved. The rain continued falling around them. Soft. Peaceful. Almost magical. Neither noticed the figure standing on a nearby rooftop. Tamari. Who had arrived only moments earlier. And heard enough. Not everything. But enough. Her expression remained calm. Yet her heart sank. Because the game had changed. The race was no longer imaginary. Someone had made their move. And now, everyone else's hearts would be forced to move as well. Far across the village, Sakura looked out her apartment window. A strange feeling settling in her chest. As if something important had just happened. And somewhere nearby, Anko sneezed while eating dango. Then looked around suspiciously. I have a bad feeling about this. For the first time in years. The balance between all four women had been broken. And Konoha's most desired man had just stepped into a future that would change everything. The morning after Hinata's confession felt strangely normal. Which was the problem? Naruto expected something dramatic. Some earth-shattering realization. Some sudden clarity. Instead, he still had paperwork. He still had meetings. And he was still confused. Very confused. The only difference was that every time he thought about Hinata's words, his heart did something unusual. Something annoying. Something suspicious. It refused to stay calm. Across the village, Hinata was experiencing a different problem. For the first time in years, she felt lighter. The secret she had carried for so long was finally gone. The fear. The uncertainty. The endless what ifs. They no longer controlled her. Naruto knew. Whatever happened next, at least he knew. And strangely enough, that was enough. For now. Unfortunately, peace lasted exactly 6 hours. Because Tamari arrived at the Hokage office. Closed the door. Locked it. And sat directly across from Naruto. Naruto immediately sensed danger. The serious kind. Not the exploding building kind. The emotional kind. Which was somehow worse. Tamari folded her arms. We need to talk. Naruto sighed. Nobody ever says that before good news. No. She agreed. They don't. Several moments passed. Neither looked away. Then Tamari asked the question. Did Hinata confess? Naruto froze. Completely. Utterly. Hopelessly. Frozen. Tamari smiled sadly. That answers my question. Naruto rubbed his face. How does everyone know everything? Because you're the least observant shinobi in history. That's not true. Tamari raised an eyebrow. Naruto surrendered immediately. Okay. Maybe a little. For a brief moment silence filled the room. Then Tamari looked out the window. Toward the village. Toward the place she had slowly come to love. And then she said something Naruto never expected. I'm jealous. Naruto blinked. What? Tamari laughed softly. The sound carried no bitterness. Only honesty. I'm jealous. This time she looked directly at him. No jokes. No sarcasm. No shields. Just truth. She was brave enough to say what she felt. Naruto stared. Tamari took a slow breath. Then stood. And walked toward the door. For a second he thought the conversation was over. Then she stopped. Without turning around. And quietly added. If I were her. Naruto's pulse quickened. Quote. I would have said the same thing. The room fell silent. Tamari opened the door. And left. Naruto remained frozen. Again. Because apparently that was becoming a habit. Elsewhere. Sakura was having a terrible day. Not because of patience. Not because of work. Not because of emergencies. Because Ino wouldn't stop talking. You look distracted. I'm not. You are. I'm really not. You definitely are. Sakura sighed. Ino grinned. Then delivered the killing blow. Does it have anything to do with Naruto? Sakura immediately dropped the report she was holding. Ino's smile became absolutely evil. Thought so. Sakura hated everything. Especially her best friend. Later that evening, Sakura found herself walking through Konoha alone. Her thoughts refused to settle. The truth was simple. Painfully simple. Somewhere between childhood. Somewhere between missions. Somewhere between battles. Naruto had become irreplaceable. Not as a teammate. Not as a friend. Something more. Something she had ignored for far too long. And now Hinata had confessed. Tamari clearly felt something too. Enko wasn't exactly subtle anymore. The comfortable illusion was disappearing. The future was changing. Whether Sakura liked it or not. Suddenly she heard familiar laughter nearby. Naruto. Without thinking, she followed the sound. It led her to a small ramen stand. Naruto sat there alone, eating. Naturally. Some things never changed. A smile escaped before she could stop it. Naruto noticed her. Wanna join me? Simple words. Simple invitation. Yet somehow her heart reacted immediately. Sakura sat beside him. For a while they talked. About nothing important. Ramen. Work. Village gossip. The usual. And that was exactly why it hurt. Because moments like this had always felt easy. Natural. Comfortable. Home. Then Naruto suddenly looked toward her. Sakura. The way he said her name made her chest tighten. Yeah, I need your advice. Sakura immediately regretted existing. Because she already knew where this was going. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. A nervous habit. One she knew well. What do you do when someone important tells you they love you? Direct hit. Critical damage. Instant elimination. Sakura's soul nearly left her body. Yet somehow she managed to smile. Barely. What does your heart say? Naruto looked down. Thinking. Really thinking. And that answer alone told Sakura everything. Because if Naruto truly felt nothing, he wouldn't be struggling. He wouldn't be questioning himself. He wouldn't look so lost. The silence stretched between them. Then Sakura smiled gently. A smile hiding far more pain than she wanted him to see. Then maybe. She stood up. You already know the answer. Before Naruto could ask what she meant, she walked away. Because if she stayed any longer, she wasn't sure she'd be able to stop herself from saying what was in her own heart. High above the village, the moon illuminated Konoha. And for the first time, 3 different women now stood on the same battlefield. Hinata had taken the first step. Tamari had revealed part of her heart. Sakura was struggling against feelings she could no longer deny. And somewhere in the darkness, Enko still knew nothing. Which meant chaos was coming. Very soon. Chaos arrived 3 days later. Which, according to several people who knew Naruto well, was actually a new personal record. The disaster began in the most unexpected place possible. Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto had finally escaped the office after an especially brutal week of paperwork. He sat down, ordered his usual bowl, and enjoyed exactly 4 minutes of peace. Then Enko appeared. Found you. Naruto groaned. How? Enko sat beside him. I have my methods. You mean stalking. I prefer dedicated observation. Naruto wasn't convinced. Neither was the ramen chef. Unfortunately, Enko quickly noticed something unusual. Naruto looked distracted. Very distracted. The kind of distracted that suggested serious thinking. Which immediately caught her attention. Enko narrowed her eyes. Okay. Naruto continued eating. Okay, what? Who is she? Naruto nearly choked. Again. People were really trying to kill him this month. What? There's definitely a she. There is not. There absolutely is. Enko pointed her chopsticks at him. I know you. That's terrifying. Answer the question. No. Answer. No. Answer. No. Enko leaned closer. Dangerously closer. Then she smirked. Oh. Naruto blinked. Oh what? Her grin widened. Someone confessed. Naruto froze. Anko gasped dramatically. Then pointed at him like she had discovered a legendary treasure. Someone confessed. Half the ramen stand turned toward them. Naruto wanted the ground to open and consume him. Immediately. Anko laughed so hard she nearly fell off her seat. Unfortunately, the laughter slowly faded, because the reality behind her joke finally settled in. Someone had confessed. Someone had actually taken that step. And suddenly the situation wasn't funny anymore. Not entirely. For the first time in a long while, Anko felt something uncomfortable. Fear. Not fear of rejection. Not fear of competition. Fear of being too late. That night she wandered through Konoha alone. No jokes. No teasing. No dango. Which was alarming. Very alarming. Because Anko usually handled difficult emotions by eating sugar and causing problems. Tonight neither option worked. Her thoughts eventually led her somewhere unexpected. The academy. The old training grounds nearby. Places filled with memories. She remembered meeting Naruto when he was younger. Loud. Stubborn. Determined. Annoying. A complete disaster. And somehow, wonderful. A laugh escaped her lips. When did that happen? When had he become important? When had she stopped seeing him as a reckless kid? When had she started looking forward to every conversation? She didn't know. The answer had arrived slowly. Quietly. Without permission. And now it was impossible to ignore. Across the village, Naruto sat alone on the rooftop of the Hokage residence. The stars stretched endlessly above him. His thoughts felt heavier than ever. Hinata's confession. Temari's honesty. Sakura's strange advice. Everything kept circling through his head. Then footsteps approached. Naruto didn't need to look. Anko. Am I that predictable? Unfortunately. She sat beside him. For once she wasn't smiling. And that immediately made Naruto nervous. Very nervous. Because a serious Anko was rare. Like spotting a unicorn. Or paperwork that completed itself. Neither spoke for several minutes. The cool night breeze drifted across the village. Finally Anko broke the silence. Do you know why I like being around you? Naruto turned toward her. The question caught him off guard. Anko laughed softly. A smaller laugh than usual. A more vulnerable one. Because you're real. Naruto frowned slightly. What does that mean? It means everyone sees titles. Her gaze moved toward the village below. They see Hokage. They see hero. They see the guy who saved the world. Her eyes returned to him. I just see Naruto. The words hit harder than she intended. Naruto felt his chest tighten. Because every woman who cared about him seemed to see something different. Yet somehow all of them saw him. The real him. And that realization was becoming impossible to ignore. Anko stood. For a moment she looked like she wanted to say more. Much more. But instead she smiled. A gentle smile rarely seen by anyone. You should figure things out soon. Naruto blinked. What? Anko shrugged. Because the longer you wait. A shadow of sadness crossed her face. The more somebody gets hurt. Then she walked away, leaving Naruto alone with thoughts he didn't want. Thoughts he couldn't escape. The next morning brought another surprise. A village mission briefing. Nothing unusual. Until Naruto entered the room. Then stopped. Because Hinata was there. Temari was there. Sakura was there. Anko was there. All four women. At the same table. The silence felt dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Naruto slowly looked around. Nobody appeared angry. Which somehow made everything worse. Much worse. Shikamaru took one glance at the room. Immediately turned around. And left. Smart man. Naruto considered following him. Too late. Tsunade appeared behind him and closed the door. The smile on her face was absolutely terrifying. Good. Naruto sensed doom. Pure doom. What did you do? Tsunade rested her chin on her hand. Oh. Nothing. That answer guaranteed she had absolutely done something. Then she looked toward the four women. Then toward Naruto. And smiled. I simply thought it was time everyone stopped running. The room became silent. Completely silent. Four pairs of eyes shifted toward Naruto. Four different hearts carrying four different feelings. And for the first time, there was nowhere left to hide. Naruto Uzumaki had finally reached the crossroads. Nobody spoke. Not immediately. The silence inside the briefing room felt heavier than any battlefield Naruto had ever stepped onto. Tsunade looked entirely too pleased with herself. Naruto looked for an escape route. There wasn't one. Hinata sat quietly. Temari remained composed. Sakura looked thoughtful. Anko looked entertained. At least until Tsunade dropped the next bomb. Congratulations. Naruto immediately didn't like where this was going. On what? Your new mission. The giant map behind her unfurled. A remote mountain region appeared. Far from Konoha, several villages had reported unusual chakra disturbances. Nothing dangerous. Just mysterious. The perfect investigation mission. Naruto relaxed slightly. A mission. Good. Missions made sense. Missions were simple. Then Tsunade continued. You five will handle it. Naruto's relaxation died instantly. You planned this. Absolutely. Tsunade. Yes. You planned this. I already answered that. 3 hours later, the team departed. The journey took them through forests, rivers, and mountain trails. The first day remained relatively peaceful, which only made everyone suspicious. Especially Naruto. Because peace rarely lasted around him. By sunset they reached a beautiful valley surrounded by towering cliffs. A crystal clear lake reflected the evening sky. The scenery looked almost unreal. Even Temari stopped to admire it. Anko whistled. Not bad. Sakura nodded. It's beautiful. Naruto smiled. Maybe this mission won't be so bad. Lightning suddenly struck a nearby tree. The tree exploded. Everyone stared at him. Naruto sighed. I should have kept my mouth shut. That night they established camp beside the lake. The fire crackled softly. Stars glittered overhead. The atmosphere felt strangely calm. For a while they shared stories. Old memories. Embarrassing moments. Childhood experiences. Even Temari laughed more than usual. Then Anko ruined everything. Naturally. So, everyone immediately became suspicious. Naruto buried his face in his hands. No. You don't even know what I'm going to ask. I absolutely do. Anko pointed toward him. When are we talking about feelings? Naruto considered diving into the lake. Temari laughed. Sakura looked away. Hinata nearly stopped breathing. Anko folded her arms. What? We all know we're thinking about it. Nobody argued. Which was significantly worse. The silence itself became an answer. Naruto slowly looked around. For the first time, he noticed something. Not hints. Not clues. Not possibilities. The truth. Every expression. Every glance. Every emotion. Everything finally connected. Like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. His heart began pounding. Because suddenly, he understood. Not part of it. All of it. The realization hit like a Rasengan. Hinata. Temari. Sakura. Anko. All of them. The world felt very quiet. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Then Naruto stood. Without warning. Without explanation. And walked away. The women watched him disappear into the darkness. Not angry. Not upset. Just worried. Because Naruto looked overwhelmed. Very overwhelmed. Far from the camp, Naruto stood alone beside the lake. Moonlight shimmered across the water. His reflection stared back. Confused. Thoughtful. Afraid. For most of his life, Naruto had chased acknowledgement. Wanted people to notice him. Wanted someone to care. Now he had more affection than he knew how to handle. And somehow, that scared him. A voice interrupted his thoughts. You look like you're fighting an invisible enemy. Naruto turned. Kakashi stood nearby, reading his book. Because apparently Kakashi appeared whenever life became complicated. How did you get here? Excellent question. Kakashi-sensei. Still an excellent question. Naruto groaned. Kakashi chuckled. Then his expression softened. You finally figured it out. Naruto sat down. Is it that obvious? To everyone except you. Great. For several moments they watched the lake. Then Naruto quietly asked, what if I hurt them? Kakashi closed his book. A rare gesture. A serious gesture. You will. Naruto froze. What? Kakashi's voice remained calm. You'll hurt someone. The words felt brutal, yet honest. There's no magical answer, Naruto. No perfect outcome. No way to protect every heart. Naruto lowered his gaze. Kakashi continued. But avoiding the choice hurts everyone. The truth settled heavily between them. Because Naruto knew he was right. Deep down, he had known for a while. The night passed quietly after that. The next morning brought the mission's first real discovery. Deep inside the valley they found an ancient shrine. Weathered by time. Covered in strange seals. Powerful chakra pulsed from within. The moment Naruto stepped closer, the entire structure reacted. The seals illuminated. The ground trembled. Ancient symbols glowed across the stone walls. And suddenly a voice echoed through the shrine. A voice that didn't belong to any of them. Those who seek answers. The chamber shook. Must first reveal the truth hidden in their hearts. Everyone froze. The glowing seals expanded, forming a massive barrier around the shrine. No exits. No escape. No way out. Anko blinked. Tamari frowned. Sakura looked concerned. Hinata's heart immediately sank. Naruto stared at the glowing barrier. Then slowly looked toward the others. Because somehow, some way, the universe had trapped him inside a magical shrine. With the 4 women who loved him. And judging by the ancient voice, the shrine intended to force honesty. Whether any of them were ready or not. The real challenge of the mission had finally begun. The ancient shrine fell silent. The glowing barrier surrounding the chamber pulsed with an eerie blue light. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Because everyone had heard the same thing. Those who seek answers must first reveal the truth hidden in their hearts. Anko folded her arms. Well, she looked around. This feels suspicious. Very suspicious, Sakura agreed. Tamari examined the seals covering the walls. They're old. Extremely old. Hinata remained quiet. Her heart was already racing. Naruto approached the barrier. A clone appeared beside him. Let's test it. The clone immediately ran toward the exit. The moment it touched the barrier. Poof. Gone. Naruto stared. The barrier stared back. Naruto slowly turned around. I have bad news. Anko sighed. We're trapped, aren't we? We're trapped. Nobody looked particularly surprised. The shrine suddenly glowed brighter. Ancient symbols spread across the floor. Then the mysterious voice returned. One by one, the chamber trembled. The truth shall be spoken. A circle of light appeared beneath Anko. Anko pointed at herself. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The light expanded. The seals illuminated. And suddenly Anko found herself standing alone in the center of the room. The others could still see her. But she couldn't move. Couldn't leave. The voice echoed again. Speak. Anko laughed nervously. No. The seals flashed. The floor shook. The voice grew louder. Speak. Anko stared at the ceiling. Then groaned dramatically. I hate ancient magic. Naruto almost smiled. Almost. Anko took a deep breath. Then her usual playful mask disappeared. For the first time in a very long time. She looked vulnerable. I didn't mean for it to happen. The room became silent. Anko looked directly at Naruto. When I first met you, you were an annoying brat. Naruto looked offended. Hey, you were fair. A faint smile appeared. Then faded. You were loud, reckless, stubborn, always getting into trouble. Naruto nodded. Still accurate. Nobody argued. Anko rolled her eyes. Then her expression softened. But every year, you kept getting back up. No matter what happened. No matter how much pain you carried. Her voice grew quieter. And somewhere along the way, the words caught in her throat. You became someone important to me. Naruto froze. Anko looked away, clearly hating every second of this. I care about you. The seals glowed, waiting, demanding more. Anko groaned. I really hate this shrine. The voice remained silent, patient, merciless. Finally she sighed, then looked directly at Naruto. I love you. The chamber fell completely silent. No jokes. No teasing. No laughter. Just truth. Raw and undeniable. The light vanished. Anko immediately sat down, covered her face, and muttered, I'm never speaking again. The shrine wasn't finished. Another circle appeared. This time beneath Sakura. Sakura closed her eyes, slowly stood, and walked into the center. Unlike Anko, she wasn't angry, just nervous. Very nervous. The voice echoed. Speak. Sakura looked toward Naruto. Years of memories flooded her mind. Team 7. Training. Failures. Victories. Promises. Goodbyes. Everything. For years she had chased Sasuke. For years she thought that was her future. Then life happened. Reality happened. And somewhere during that journey, everything changed. Sakura smiled sadly. I spent a long time looking in the wrong direction. Naruto's eyes widened slightly. Sakura laughed softly. Funny, isn't it? When the answer was standing beside me the entire time. The chamber remained silent, listening, waiting. Sakura looked directly at Naruto. You never gave up on anyone. Not even when they deserved it. You believed in people when nobody else would. Her eyes became brighter, more emotional, and before I realized it, the words came easier than expected. You became the person I trusted most. Naruto couldn't look away. Sakura smiled. The same smile he had known for years. Only softer, warmer, and infinitely more vulnerable. I love you too, Naruto. The words echoed through the shrine. Simple, honest, real. The light vanished. Sakura returned to her place. Neither she nor Anko looked at each other. Not because they were angry. Because they both understood exactly how difficult that had been. The shrine glowed again. Temari's turn. The sand kunoichi stepped forward calmly. At least on the outside. Inside was another story entirely. The voice spoke once more. Speak. Temari crossed her arms. Trying to appear confident. Trying. Not entirely succeeding. I hate this. Anko pointed. See. I told you. Temari ignored her. Then looked toward Naruto. And everything became simpler. Because the truth was already there. Waiting. I admired you first. Naruto blinked. Temari continued. The idiot who never quit. The shinobi who changed the world. The Hokage everyone respected. A faint smile appeared. But admiration isn't what scared me. Her voice softened. What scared me was getting to know you. The room remained silent. Every word mattered. Temari looked straight into Naruto's eyes. And realizing I wasn't looking at a hero anymore. The smile grew gentler. I was looking at a man. A very long silence followed. Then she finished. And I fell in love with him. The shrine flashed brilliantly. The confession accepted. The truth acknowledged. 3 hearts laid bare. 3 feelings finally spoken aloud. And now, only one remained. Hinata. The final circle appeared beneath her feet. The chamber became completely silent. Because unlike the others, everyone already knew her answer. Even Naruto. Hinata slowly stepped forward. The glowing light surrounded her. Gentle, warm, almost comforting. The ancient voice echoed once more. Speak. Hinata looked toward Naruto. 1,000 memories passed through her mind. The boy who inspired her. The friend who changed her life. The person she never stopped believing in. The person she loved. Her eyes softened. And she smiled. A beautiful smile. One filled with absolute certainty. I don't need to say it again. The shrine trembled. The light brightened. Hinata's gaze never left Naruto. You already know. Naruto felt his heart skip. Because she was right. He did know. And somehow, that made her words hit even harder. Hinata gently placed a hand over her heart. I loved you yesterday. I love you today. And I'll probably love you tomorrow too. A faint blush appeared on her cheeks. But that's my truth. The shrine exploded with golden light. The seals illuminated across every wall. The barrier surrounding the chamber trembled. Cracks began spreading through the ancient energy. One confession. Then another. Then another. Then another. 4 truths. 4 hearts. 4 women. And now, every eye slowly turned toward Naruto. The shrine became silent. The voice returned one final time. Ancient. Powerful. Unavoidable. Their truths have been spoken. The chamber shook. Naruto's pulse quickened. The voice continued. Now. The glowing symbols spread beneath his feet. Speak yours. And suddenly, The most difficult moment of Naruto Uzumaki's life had arrived. Thanks for watching.